everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Youth Today, the show where we dive deep into issues that matter to young people. Today, I will be talking to Sienna, the Member of Youth Parliament for Wolverhampton and the founder of Daggers Down.
Hey Zara, I'm Sienna Ahir. I'm 17 years old and I'm the Youth MP for Wolverhampton and I'm the founder of Daggers Down and I'm a youth advocate too. So I try and represent the views of young people in my area and campaign for issues that really affect us, such as knife crime and employment. Those are like my manifesto areas. So it's been really great campaigning for that.
Is there any specific projects, obviously, your campaign that you've worked on recently or any issues you focused in your youth council?
Yeah, so when I was campaigning to be youth MP, we obviously had to make a manifesto for all you politicians, we know what that is. And mine focused on better employment opportunities and educational equality and knife crime because in the West Midlands we have one of the highest knife crime rates in the UK and one of the lowest employment rates. So I really wanted to focus around that. And I focus on education more from the policy point of view, like in the House of Commons, I made my speeches about that and I founded Daggers Down, which is a youth-led anti-knife crime campaign, which has been around for 2 years, but I really launched it in August last year. And yeah, we've been doing a lot of work around that, and in the long term, I plan to really carry on doing that past my MYP term.
That sounds really, really exciting. In terms of your MYP work, can you tell me the highlight of your work, or is there some a memorable moment as being an MYP that you've experienced?
Yeah, so I represented the Midlands on the Youth Select Committee, which is a real life parliamentary select committee, but it's youth led, which is really amazing. And our inquiry it was into youth violence and social media, both very prevalent topics even now. And we got to do oral evidence sessions where we talked to Dame Diana, Baroness Jones, relevant government ministers. We talked to organisations that deal with youth violence and a lot of cool different people. And then we launched our report and we visited Downing Street for that, which is really cool. We got to see Larry the cat, which was definitely a highlight. And yeah, we got to have a proper launch. Yeah, and then the government responded within 3 months because that's protocol for the select committee. They have to respond. I'll let it leave up to you what you think of the government response, but it was a typical government response. But some good did come out of it. Like Ofcom did eventually make a youth advisory board, which is one of our recommendations. So I'm glad some good stuff came out of it. But I feel like they could have spent more. But I guess that's just the youth select committees, isn't it?
Well, at least you had some real life impact, and obviously they made the advisory board, so I mean, it's better than nothing. Did you manage to stroke Larry by any chance?
Oh no, I didn't even know it was real. I was like, is that like a teddy bear? Does Kirsten have a teddy bear lying around? And then it started moving around. I was like, oh my gosh, it's a real life cat. But no, I think the security was eyeing me up when I was trying to get towards Larry, but we just admired
Oh,
him as he purred around. I think he was sleeping.
that's really cute. I think it was worth it. So, what inspired you to get into youth politics in the first place?
Oh, I should start by saying I knew absolutely nothing about politics. Literally, I was just a young person that was trying to get some leadership roles and I joined my local youth council by chance. I didn't even know what a council was, to be honest. I thought it was about bins. But then the youth MP elections came around and I just joined and I just thought I'm going to go for it. Just for, as an opportunity because I felt like I wanted to do more stuff and I didn't really have a lot of opportunities to get involved with extracurricular stuff. Um, and I won, I guess. And then I never looked back since. And I found a passion for youth advocacy, which I never knew was there, and about politics. And now I actually do take A level politics, and I know more about the world, and I know I want to do something related to this in the future. But it was a long road. I definitely offended a lot of politicians because I had absolutely no idea about politics at all. So I was asking really controversial questions without actually knowing what politics was about. But I guess being a young person gives you that ability to be unfiltered. So yeah, that was my journey into youth politics.
As you might know, youth MP elections are coming around this year. For anyone who is thinking of applying or is standing, do you have any advice to give them if they want to become MYP?
Oh, I would say don't be scared of offending people and just be your authentic self. I think the most important thing about being an MYP is not how snazzy you sound or being a politician. It's about championing your lived experience and also representing the views of young people around you, not just your own views. I think that's what makes a really good MYP stand out, and just making something for yourself. Like Zara, this like podcast is yours and is absolutely amazing, and like just making your own campaigns and stuff. Like you don't have to tie it to anything. You can just grow it for yourself as a grassroots initiative, and then you can really make a local difference.
I think this is why you're an MYP. You're absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
Um,
So are you.
Thank you. So, so obviously we're getting votes at 16 coming around, and there's an increasing need for young people to engage politically so they understand the world around them and can be informed when they come to vote. How can we get young people engaged with youth politics more and youth activism?
I would say making it accessible, because young people are very different the way they engage with politics and express their views. Some young people aren't the most articulate, they don't want to stand in front of a stage and give a big speech. Some young people engage very differently, whether that's through art or, music or different things. So I think making it accessible to a larger audience, like especially some young people may be homeschooled, or don't have access to the internet, or might have like disabilities or neurodiverse needs. And I think making sure that it can appeal to a wide range of people is really important. And I do think youth politics is very inaccessible in that sense. And even in a practical sense, a lot of stuff is very much based in certain areas, and like transport costs. A lot of young people can't afford to go down to these main cities, or if you live in a more rural or deprived area, you can't really afford to keep commuting up and down. So it's just making sure that opportunities are everywhere, not like disparities. Which is why I campaign around education and like equality and stuff, because I think there are a lot of barriers young people face, and we should definitely be working towards breaking them.
I think there's also a lot of kind of lack of information surrounding the opportunities that young people have.
Oh,
For
yeah, yeah.
for example, being youth MP, lots of people don't even know about it. Do you think there's any way we could somehow increase kind of knowledge of these opportunities or this information so more young people can get involved? Because there's so many barriers and people don't even know about the opportunities that are around them.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's a really big thing. Like I said, I had no idea what a youth MP was or what a youth council is. And I think that's partly because it's marketed by adults. A lot of adults and politicians are promoting it, so it only reaches a certain demographic or people from like a certain age group. Like a lot of MYPs are slightly older, like in their kind of
Yeah.
latter A level teen years. So I say me and you, we joined quite young compared to the
Yeah.
demographic, and I like seeing now. Obviously, because our cohort of MYPs are really great, I'm seeing a lot of younger young people like in their 15, 14 years old getting involved, and I think that's really great that they can grow their experience. So I think making sure young people are the ones that are promoting it, whether that be on social media or TikTok, which may not be possible anymore, but based on the social media stuff coming up, yeah. But yeah, reaching out to schools as well. I think schools are a very big way young people are engaged, but also making sure, like I said, you're reaching those young people that may not be in schools, like in youth hubs or other places. Like I think it has to be a multifaceted approach in terms of
Yes.
marketing stuff, so a lot of people can see the content that is being marketed and the opportunities.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree. I mean, there's schools, but there's also youth clubs, and even youth clubs, I think, are being almost underutilized because young people don't even know
Yeah.
that they exist. So yeah, there is a big problem with that as well. Let's divert then to your campaign and what you've been doing for Daggers Down. So, what inspired you to start campaigning for Bleed Kids, and what ignited that spark to start campaigning?
Yeah, so obviously Daggers Down is like my brainchild, I guess. It's something that I founded based on like the fact that we have a very high knife crime rate, and a lot of campaigns are youth consulted but not youth led. By that I mean that there are adults leading it, and it can seem very tokenistic. If you talk to a lot of youth advocates, they'll say that sometimes they feel like it can be quite transactional, like we just asked for the sake of it, and then our voices are never really implemented into the heart of the campaign or into policy. So I wanted Daggers Down to be authentically youth led. And as for bleed kits, I thought that is a perfect first project to start doing because it's not a lot of times when I'm talking to politicians and adults and young people, they talk about the fear that surrounds anti-knife crime stuff, and that is a very hard conversation to have, which is why I think bleed kits are the perfect way to start diverting into that conversation, from a lens of empowerment and hope and youth safety as well. It's actually part of first aid, but a lot of young people don't even know what a bleed kit is, which is crazy because it's a really essential part of first aid, and it's not even just for stabbings. It can be for like an accident or falling down the road or something. It can be used for a lot of stuff, so I'm really focusing on that education and installing them in hotspots of knife crime in my area and hopefully branching them out as well into different local authorities.
Well, since you talked about bleed kits and how young people don't know what they are, can you give us a brief explanation about how what bleed kits are and how they work?
Yeah, I'd love to. So a bleed control kit, like I say, doesn't need to be used for stabbing. It can be used for any kind of traumatic bleeding. And there's different variations and like different companies that provide them, but I use the Daniel Baird ones because they're amazing. It's founded from by Ling Baird, whose son tragically died in Birmingham when he was quite young from a stabbing. And these bleed kits are trained by 999 call handlers of how to instruct to use them. So they're obviously you call the police and then they will direct you to a bleed kit. And there's also maps online of how where to locate them. And then they will tell you how to use it. And then there's also instructions in there. It's very simple. It's a basic like tourniquet, which means that if it's like a last resort thing, you only use them when the ambulance tell you to, because they can be quite they completely cut off the circulation to your limb, because obviously that's if there's like no if you're having too much blood loss, you have to cut it off, but obviously you don't want to do that when you can just pack the wound and prevent it. But there's like bandages in there, tourniquet, which you only use when you're told to, which stems the bleeding completely until the ambulances come. And I think the
Mhm.
real importance of them is the fact that an ambulance can take 8 to 10 minutes to arrive, best case scenario, but someone can bleed out in 3 minutes. So the importance is that it bridges that gap between calling the police or ambulance and getting the ambulance there. So a person can really save someone's life with it. And there has been a lot of amazing cases where different kits have been used to save people's lives on the road. And it's just about educating people on how to use them and where they are is really important.
I think more young people should, and more people in general should know about bleed kits and where to find them. Is there an app or a site where you can find where the bleed kits are?
There's lots of different companies actually that do different things. There was one on the Police and Crime Commissioner's website. I don't know if that's being updated or because obviously the role is kind of going to look different in the next few years. So, and then there's different organizations that make maps and apps as well, online and on a website thing as well. But I think it's really important, and there's one main one because it can be even for me, it's quite confusing. There's a lot of different things everywhere. So maybe that's something I do in the future, like a future project or making sure that we use one main one. But ultimately, the police have access to all of that different locations and the council knows as well. So when you do need to use one and you phone the emergency services, they will be able to direct you. And hopefully the aim is that there's one in every location. There should be one everywhere. It's part of first aid, but they're not. So that's why I really want to kit them out in the most important locations where in Wolverhampton there is a bit of a disparity of where they're located. So that's why it's important to make them really accessible and very visible to the public where there's a lot of people around. So like city centres or like supermarkets or parks, wherever they are really needed and there's a lot of people going every day.
So I believe you've funded a bleed kit already through your campaign. Where is the bleed kit now, and how was the process?
Yeah, so I did a sprint triathlon. I think I did it last month now. It feels like ages ago. Yeah, last month. So I swam 30 lengths, I cycled 20K, and I ran 5K. And I was supported by my local VRP and like MPs and the council and different anti-knife crime advocates, which is really great to get that support. Yeah, through my campaign, I funded 15 kits. Yeah, 15. And I also yeah, I know it's a lot. I've just got all these kits just in my house waiting for different businesses to get back to me. But yeah, and I've
Yes,
also
that's
secured funding. Yeah, it's
yeah.
really good. I also secured funding for like the future of Daggers Down in terms of like projects you're going to do. But I'm also going to invest that into cabinets because cabinets are really expensive, but they can be literally accessible 24/7 with like a pin password that the police or the call handlers will give you. And they can be bolted onto walls rather than having to go inside a business and ask for a bleed kit. But yeah, and I have started the process of giving them out. A lot of schools have been really interested into it. So I've been down to like working with my local MP, getting these schools. I gave two away literally 2 days ago, to two different schools, and yeah, I've given it to some dental practices, my local youth hub, and yeah, it's just making people respond to my emails is a real difficulty here. Yeah, hopefully hotspots of knife crime, like I said, and hopefully. I have some very ambitious plans of where I want to put them, so catch up with me and we'll see if they actually end up going there, but I'm going to definitely spam the emails until they're in the locations I want them to be.
That's absolutely amazing. 15 bleed kits and you've already given them out. I mean, you're you're on fire. That's really, really good. You must feel very proud. I think, the triathlon sounds really hard as well, and what you're doing is truly, really, really good. In terms of then youth violence, and what do you think are the main drivers behind youth violence today?
I think it's very multifaceted. A lot of people make it very complex, and there are
Yeah.
a lot of different factors that kind of influence youth violence. But I think for me, the biggest thing is young people feel disadvantaged. They feel disadvantaged from the get go, and they feel like they have to go into certain pathways because there is no alternative. And that's why it's so important that we have mentorship and lived experience because I'm sure Zara, as a young person, you can relate to assemblies where you have like a police officer or a teacher in front of you teaching about knife crime once every year, and it doesn't hit hard. Whereas if you put someone, a young person, a victim or a perpetrator, in front of a crowd, they will definitely engage. And I think it's just showing the alternatives to young people. And then there's all the different branches of that, as in employment opportunities, the fact that young people need to have more different things to do rather than staying on the streets and getting involved or being more likely to be exploited. So yeah, I think that's the main thing for me, and I think that's why mentorship and empowerment is so important because we hear a lot of negativity as well, which is why we need to champion the really positive things that young people do and just yeah, just empower them. I love that word empowerment. That's like the real center of my campaign and my approach towards it.
I think that's a wonderful answer, and that's absolutely amazing. I think your campaign has shed such a positive light on something which can be so harmful. I really love it, and all the Blue Kids, what you're doing is absolutely amazing and just well done. I mean, it just shows you started out, you didn't even know about your youth council, you became MYP, and then now you're doing this and you're funding Blue Kids. It's absolutely amazing where things can take you, and that's why people like you are so inspiring, and it's just amazing to have you.
Thank
So
you.
thank you
So are
for
you,
being
Zara.
here. So, okay, let's shift from violence and safety. So in terms of the ban on social media for under 16s, what was your first reaction when you heard that under 16s would be banned from using social media?
Oh, a definite wince, a very visible wince for me. I don't really think it's a very good idea. Yeah, and like I said, when you see all the people that are definitely campaigning for this cause, for instance, it was passed through the House of Lords by 60 people that voted for it. And there's a lot of MPs that are very visibly campaigning for the ban. They're
Yeah.
adults, that's all I want to say. And that there has definitely been a lack of youth consultation in this because, like, you don't, if you ask a young person, every young person I've asked and every media thing that's going on, like, majority of young people say no. And I think that's really important. And like I said, the Youth Select Committee was the first and only ever youth consultation into youth violence and social media, which is one of the main reasons why someone would want to ban social media because of the problems of youth violence and stuff that's promoted
Yeah.
on there. And we came out with no, it wouldn't work and it wouldn't be practicable. So when I see stuff on like the press that they're thinking of banning it, and they probably will, in my heart, I think they will. It's just a bit frustrating as a young person that has campaigned for around this issue and that has heard from young people and professionals because professionals in the area also say it's not going to work. So I really hope that they don't or they consult more widely before they make a decision. But that's politics, I guess.
Let's hope so. I mean, especially when we think about votes at 16 and targeting misinformation as well. I mean, if young people are on social media from a young age, they can build their media literacy skills as well. So if we ban social media for young people and we introduce votes at 16, I guess in some way we are more susceptible to misinformation. And wouldn't you agree that from social media we get more perspectives from different people because it comes up on our For You page and we get so much content coming to us? Do you think then that it protects them or silences them in some way?
Oh, like on the when we were doing the Youth Select Committee, we went to the House of Lords and we testified or gave evidence to inquiry on media literacy. And I'm
Yeah,
going to say the same thing I said there, that like we're a generation that's grown up on social media. So if you take that away, it's not gonna do anything because we've already grown up on it, and the problems on social media are no longer limited to that. Like when you talk about body image, misinformation, and like racism, homophobia, all those issues on social media, they're not just something you face online. It's something that's in the real world too. It's a cultural issue, and that you're gonna be exposed to it when you're 17 anyway, arguably something that a 16-year-old shouldn't see, something a 17-year-old shouldn't see. It's a bit backwards. And I do think that social media, when we talk about more opportunities, I get a lot of my opportunities from social media. That's how they're marketed to us. And that's how
yeah,
young people do engage with opportunities. So and it's also how we express ourselves. Like I said earlier, that some young people articulate their self in different ways through content creation. Social media is a huge part of that, of expressing your creativity. So it does silence you in the sense that what are those young people going to do? How are they going to express themselves? And people feel more confident online than they do in real life, for good or bad. But it doesn't always have to be bad. I think there's a good and bad in everything. So I do think a lot of young people will feel silenced by the potential ban, and we do access a lot of political content online, but it's more
yeah,
towards the it's I think banning it would send a message that we don't need to regulate social media, we just need to ban young people from it. But then it's still an unregulated platform. I think we need to push for social media companies to take accountability towards the content that they're promoting, and also influencers as well, people with a lot of people that listen to them. They need to be more accountable for the content that they're promoting. And I think that would be
yeah.
more a better viable alternative than banning it altogether, because there are a lot of pros to social media. So I don't think it would go down very well with young people if you banned it. It would just, and they'd still get around it anyway. I mean, there's VPNs. I know how to get around the ban. So yeah, I don't think it would work, which is why you can definitely see the adult narrative that's pushing this ban rather than authentic youth voice that's actually showing adults that it wouldn't work.
Do you think that the social media ban sends a message that adults and the government don't trust young people? Because after it's at 16 and everything that's come out, it shows that they trust us with some level of maturity. But do you think that ban kind of shows that they don't really trust us and that they don't really think that we're very mature and we can't handle issues ourselves?
I think it's a bit of a backwards message, isn't it? Because how can you give us votes at 16, but then you're going to ban social media? It's like you're taking one thing away and giving us one thing. Because if you're trusting us to do votes at 16, you need to trust us to know media literacy and political education. And a huge part of political education is deciphering fact from fiction and what's political misinformation. And social media is the biggest platform towards that. So if you're not
Yeah,
exposed, arguably, when it comes to AI content and political misinformation, I know more than an adult would, because I've grown up on it and I see like my parents or teachers showing me something and I'm like, that's AI, that's not real. Even like when it comes to like something basic like a film trailer, I'm like, that's not
exactly.
a real trailer. Because we've grown up on social media, we know what's real and what's not. And it's just our
Yeah,
beliefs that push us to actually believe in it or not. Like if we believe in a certain ideology, we'll engage with that content even though we know it's not real. So I think it's the adults that need to be educated more so, because they're the ones that haven't grown up on social media.
exactly.
So they need the education and they need to be able to have those conversations with young people rather than us showing them what's not real. But that's just my opinion. But
I
I think a
completely
lot of young people, yeah, a lot of young people would agree with me.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you on that. And going back to what you said about kind of regulation and making corporations, social media companies take accountability, do you think instead of banning, how can social media companies instead take accountability for young people's safety instead of then banning it for under 16s?
Yeah, this is a huge part of that inquiry in the youth select committee, because it is quite hard in terms of a lot of the most of the big social media companies are based in America. So obviously they're like, it's very hard to get them to listen to us. But also, it's a multi-governmental approach in the sense that Ofcom has some accountability, but also different government departments are in charge of different things. And I think it
Yeah,
should be a combined effort in terms of tackling the issue and getting people to listen to us. And yeah, I think the Online Safety Act, we one of our recommendations is that it's not robust enough in preventing youth violence or regulating social media. And then
yeah,
they've done a lot of stuff that is quite controversial under that act. So
yeah,
I think rather than doing stuff like that, they should. I know they did fines as one of the regulations under it, but the fines, if you're only like fining like a couple of 100,000, which sounds a lot, but to a multi-billion dollar corporation, that's not going to be a lot. It's not really going to impact them that much. So I think putting restrictions on the content, that it's hard because you don't want to limit freedom of speech, but at the same time, if
yeah,
something's blatant misinformation, it shouldn't be there. And I think social media influencers need to have a lot more accountability. Like, if you've got so much influence, you're under a position of trust to the people that you're influencing. So if you're
yeah,
promoting harmful content or content that's not real, you should
yeah,
definitely have more sanctions against them, because right now there's nothing against them really, other than the public scrutiny under that. But I think they play a huge role in the future of social media, and that they should definitely be held more accountable. In addition to like the corporations like Instagram and reporting mechanisms and making sure that if they are not doing what they're supposed to in terms of taking down harmful content, then they should be kind of sanctioned for that in a way that actually impacts them.
yeah. I definitely agree with your stance that instead of banning it altogether, there should be regulation because young people still deserve to use social media. But it's not our fault. It's more of the fault of those people who are pushing out this harmful content and the companies. And of course, in part, the government can intervene, but not to the extent that they take us out of the picture completely. So I
Yeah.
completely agree with your view. Since you take A level politics, you must know that we have a participation crisis um, in our country. The general election saw a record low turnout. Do you think that banning under 16s from social media will weaken democratic participation because they're accessing less information? And social media is very good at mobilizing young people, and not just young people, but people in general, on certain issues that they care about. So, do you think it will exacerbate the participation crisis in some way and harm democracy in the long run?
Unless there's a very viable shift in the way that political parties market their content, yeah, I think it will, because even for adults, the main way we access political campaigns and information and even highlights from like PMQs, the way I watch PMQs mostly, if I don't have time to watch the full things, I watch the highlights on Instagram or something. So unless there's a visible shift, which there won't be, on the way that we access political campaigns and manifesto promises and content, it will, because it is definitely marketed on social media. And I've seen in the recent years a lot of investment in political parties making content on social media that is appealing specifically for young people, like reels and memes and trends. And
Yeah,
unless you teach it in schools, or the only other way is schools, but even then you have to be non-partisan in schools. That's political
yeah,
education. So how are the mainstream political parties, how are they going to access young people? Because a lot of young
exactly.
people don't watch BBC News every day, or they're not going to tune into the political broadcast or attend party
Yeah,
conferences, and they're not going to be very engaged with door knocking and stuff. So I feel like it'll, even though young people have the vote, they won't be informed enough on specific political parties to make an informed decision. Even with political education, that's non-partisan. So, yeah, I think, and that will end up once again giving older people a bigger voice than young people, because they won't be able to access content in the way that's accessible for them. So I think
yeah.
you're definitely stripping that accessibility that young people have from social media. So yeah, I do think it will definitely feed into that political apathy and that feeling that, oh, we don't have a say, which is definitely a very political A level thing to say. But we can write an essay on it, I guess. It'll be a future question.
Yeah, I guess we can. And in terms of social media, I'm sure you'd probably agree that through social media, we're able to scrutinize parties quite easily. So if young people don't have access to social media, do you think in that sense that we won't be able to push parties to care about young people in the sense like scrutinizing their manifesto policies and what they're saying about young people, because if young people do not have access to social media, how can we scrutinize them easily? Do you think that kind of limits how we can hold parties accountable?
Yeah, partly because I think obviously me and you, like we're into politics. I take A level politics now, but younger me that doesn't take A level politics, I wouldn't know the ins and outs of it. I wouldn't be that interested, to be honest. And social media, it does give you, it gives that information right in front of you, and we can decipher, oh, this is a load of that's not true, or that's not real. That's a bit glorified interpretation. But without that, how are we gonna scrutinize it? Like for instance, Daggers Down. We headlined BBC a few, I think 2 weeks ago, which is really great, and we had a whole press release about it. And under the press release, I was reading the comments, which you should not ever do if you're like in the public eye. And yeah, there was a lot of adults saying a bit like misinformation and blatant racist comments, but they were adults, and all the young people on there, they were all liking it and engaging with it positively. But it was the adults that was spreading political misinformation, even though as an MYP, I'm not partisan. So
Yeah.
that lack of political information is actually from an adult point of view and not from a young person side. So it means that the scrutiny of political parties will just be pushed by adult agendas, and adult agendas tend to be a lot more focused on political ideology and ideas rather than a young person's interpretation. Like a young person will just view a manifesto as in how does it benefit them as the public, whereas an adult will view it from like a taxpayer perspective or like a ideological perspective or based on jobs and income, whereas a young person they'll just focus on the core of the issue in like an idealistic way, which I feel like we do need to be more ambitious of what we campaign for, like in terms of transport and education. Yeah, like we have realism, but we should also be focusing on making a better future. So even if that's a bit more ambitious in terms of a campaign promise or may take a longer term, we should try and push for that better narrative. So I feel like definitely push a more adult agenda and that young people may not be able to effectively scrutinize because they won't have access to political manifestos right in front of them. They'll have to actively go and look for them. And for young people that don't aren't that interested in politics, they probably won't go out their way to research into that unless they're explicitly told to in their thing, which is down to education. And even education that's subjective, like schools have a different approach towards PSHE and political education. So yeah, I definitely agree with that point.
Thank you for your wonderful insights. I think we've had a really intellectual discussion. I hope someone from the government's watching us because they should really take
Same.
more opinions from young people. And yeah, there's lots of flaws with the ban, which could have been dealt in a different way, as we've highlighted. So it was really lovely to talk to you about the ban as well and about your campaign. Do you have any plans for the future for your campaign?
Yeah, definitely. We're on the
Yeah.
planning stages of maybe resources in the future that can target adults in addition to young people. And but right now, in the short term, it's just kitting out the bleed kits and making sure they're in the right locations. But yeah, hopefully, cool things are coming in the future.
You're doing absolutely wonderful work as a
So are
campaigner.
you.
I think you're an absolute inspiration to any young person, and it's amazing that you've gone from from the youth council, and then now you've done all these youth politics, and we've gone to parliament, and you've had your own campaign, and you take A-level politics. So clearly, it's definitely inspired you. So it's been absolutely wonderful talking to you today, and that wraps up our episode. So I hope you've all enjoyed, and thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Zara.
Okay.